All right, instead of the yellow brick road, let's follow the blue water here. What's this? What's this all
I'm so
about?
glad that
Where
you
we're
noticed
going?
this. So as part of the design of our history gallery, we have the Kalamazoo River that winds its way through the gallery spaces. This isn't necessarily a chronological space, so the tie-in is always, the community, the river kind of interconnects everything together. So we talk about a lot of stories, and again, they interconnect with one another. There's a lot of layers in this exhibit. There's interactions for kids, and there's also stories you'll see everywhere of individuals from the community that relate to the different topics that we bring up. So it is, you can spend, we have people that come here and then they come back and say, oh, I don't remember seeing that. And so you can come back here multiple times and get something new every time.
Much history based on pulp and circumstances, paper mill supplies and users, and of course, the water. Right?
Absolutely. I'm glad you picked up on that too, because towns develop around their natural resources, and so again, if it weren't for the water resources, we couldn't have had the pulp industry, and at the same time, the pulp industry, had some adverse effects on our water system. So everything is related, and these are the things that we still talk about today as being big topics of conversation. So I think although everything is sort of stems from the history in this gallery, it still relates to what we're dealing with today.
And there's art to history. Look at these artifacts.
Yeah, see, I think it's so neat that, back in the 19th century, even something like a stove or a radiator, they put a lot of artistic elements in those. It was almost like a decoration in the house. So I really get a kick out of that. I love seeing old things that have an artistic flair to them.
And here we go. We can just keep on going down the river. So what's been the history? What brought this to life?
So back in 1881, a local collector, Horace Peck, had a collection of kind of natural history type things. Back in that day, that's what people were interested in, fossils and shells. It was just fascinating to people. So he got a collection together, started a little museum. The collection grew and grew. By the 1950s, it had outgrown its original spot and was part of the library downtown. Outgrew that space. The community decided it wanted to dedicate its own space to a museum. So in 1995, they started planning this building, and here we are. In 1996, this building opened up.
Give me an example of one of maybe how I'm interactive in art.
Yeah, we do a lot with music history, and we also, in those exhibits, even though they're mostly focused on the history of music, there's also interaction where people that visit here can start to experiment with their own musical talents. We talk about the history of Gibson guitar. Of course, everyone that comes to Kalamazoo wants to know something about Gibson, and we have a lot of pieces from his collection. But we also get into sort of the technology and science behind music, and how do you get these sounds, how do you make those sounds, and a lot of the people that were in Kalamazoo were experimenting with that. So it's interesting to learn how they came to do those interventions and things. So,
what's at the heart of the Kalamazoo Valley Museum?
I think at the heart of the Kalamazoo Museum is, of course, education and learning. And so we are trying to get lifelong learners here, and we start at the youngest ages. We see tons of parents that come here again and again. Because we're free, they can continuously use us to help their kids understand different concepts in all sorts of areas. So we've got a space dedicated to smaller kids called Children's Landscape, and this is a great space that targets kids that are under 5, and that's for all sorts of reasons. First, we want to make moms comfortable that their kids can run around without having to worry about older, bigger kids as far as safety and play. So that room is all about tactile explorations, playing, how you can learn from playing, and a lot of times those activities change and are mirrored in our other exhibits. So you can bring your little kids in right now and learn about animals, and then we've got other exhibits that explore animals for older ages. So that's a really great space, and I think those kids that come here even that young, if they grow up coming to the museum, as they grow up, they're going to be taking different things.
And here we are, Tammy, in front of and beside some pretty cool art. What's here?
Yeah, so this is our community mural, which is part of our history gallery. And what's really cool about the mural is there are people and places represented in the mural from all different time periods and people from all different walks of life. So when you look at it at first, you think, oh, this is now, and then you realize that people are dressed in some attire from different centuries. So it's really neat to take a good look at this mural. It was done by Conrad Kaufman when the museum opened back in 1996, so he started working on it that year before then, but it's been updated since then. So every so often we take a look at the mural and we add to it. We have him come back and add different things just to make sure that we're still representing our community and making sure we're current. So.
And do we also, who's next to you?
Well, this is a lady from, her newspaper says 1947. I think what's interesting about these sculptures is that, again, this exhibit was designed back in 1995, way before people were taking selfies, but it just lends itself so well. People come in here and they're doing selfies with her, selfies with the other sculptures, they're in the mural, so it's really cool that we've been able to keep up with the times like that.
Yet another tie-in of community and art. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Have a favorite?
Oh, I think the baseball player coming out of the wall is very cool. It kind of scares people at first, but it's really cool.
It's really neat. How are you strategically being inclusive and accessible?
That is one of the things that we continuously work on. We have been developing a lot of programs for targeted groups, including kids with autism and adults with autism. We do all sorts of special programming for people that are hearing impaired or vision impaired. But right now, one of the big things is the autism programming that we've been working on. So it really focuses on the tactile again. You know, what can I feel? What can I touch? How can that help me learn? And getting over the barriers that oftentimes are very difficult for children with autism when they go out into the world and they're in public spaces that can often be really loud or overwhelming. We've developed ways to get around that. So we've been working on those. We have them available, but it's one of those things that we're constantly trying to modify and update and make better. So I'm really proud of the things that we do for a lot of those target groups.
So I walk in the front doors. What's my map? How do I get the most of an experience here?
Wow, so it's hard to take in everything in one visit. It is possible, but when you walk in, you are immediately struck again by the architecture and what we call our core gallery.
The art, right?
The art and architecture of the space. And so immediately you will notice 3 floors of these amazing objects that are kind of highlighted by themselves. And again, as a material culture person, I love that people can look at an object and really start to ponder who made that, who used that, why is it here? And a lot of times those objects have artistic elements themselves.
Talk a little bit about the job of designing your museum.
So we have an interesting job to design our museum because we are not just a history museum, we're not just a science museum, and we're not just an art museum. So it was a really tricky thing back in 1995 as they were designing this building because we really don't want to give any of those topics, you know, we want to show the interconnectivity of those 3 areas. And so as you walk around, I think you'll notice that we've done a pretty good job with that, you know, where science is in one area, but it also is reflected in another area. We have pieces of artifacts, for example, from our collection that are in the science gallery when we talk about innovation, and the arts are kind of throughout. So I think they were very conscious of trying to do that when they designed this building. I think they did a great job. You know, originally I said we came to this building because we were out of space, and it's funny because even 20 years later we still struggle with having enough space. You know, we would love to have more exhibit space. We definitely would love to have more collection storage. You know, we are constantly growing in terms of our historic collection, and it's just, I think every museum has that problem. No matter how well they design their building, there's just never enough space.
Would you take me for a museum experience?
Absolutely.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.